Okay, I want to do a few more examples of using the graphing calculator to do the row operations in Gauss-Jordan elimination. So up here is some information on how to delete matrices if you need to, but what I usually do is I just usually override and change my matrices when I start a new problem. Sometimes I will get several matrices saved and I usually just override them as I need to. But if you do want to go in and just start all fresh, you can follow these steps to do that. So what we're going to do now, I've already got all the intermediate matrices shown here. This right here is what I would expect to see on your written work for the exam. You do not have to show me every individual calculation for every individual entry, but what you are always expected to show me are the matrices, the intermediate matrices that you create, and every row operation that you perform in order to get from one to the other. And then if you want to do it basically how we're going to do it right here, where the rest of the work is done on the calculator, that's perfectly fine. But I have to have something that I can refer to check that if your matrix gets off somewhere, like your entries start going wrong, I need to be able to go back and look at the row operations you were trying to perform in order to grade you and in order to give you some helpful feedback on what went wrong, where, and why. So I'm going to go ahead and just go back into my second matrix menu. I'm going to choose matrix A again and clear that second matrix, and I'm going to edit it. Instead of just deleting it, I'm just going to overwrite it. Now I actually need 3 rows and 4 columns in this case because I have my constants over here. So I'm going to change the columns to a 4. And then I'm going to enter in my entry. So I have a 2, 4, 2, 6, -2, 1, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 5. Okay, so I've got my new matrix entered in, and now I'm going to row reduce it one step at a time all the way through using the calculator. So go ahead and quit back out to your main screen and now start the process. So what I've decided is the first thing I'd like to do is multiply this whole top row by a half in order to get and create my leading 1 up here. So I go back into my second matrix menu, I choose math, and to do this I only need to choose the times row option. Okay, so we haven't seen one like this. How do we type in the commands for times row? So what I want to do is look up here. In order to type in a times row, how I type that in is I type in what I want to multiply by, the matrix I'm working in, and what row I'm doing it to. Okay, so in this case, we want to times row 1 by a half. So instead of typing in a half, I'm going to type in 0.5, just because that's easier. I want to do this in matrix A, so I have to do a second matrix and choose matrix A. And what row am I doing this to? I'm doing it to row 1. Don't forget to store it back as a new matrix A. That's a very, very important step. Okay, so what that's done now is that's changed my first row to be this, not changing either of the other 2 rows. Okay, now this is basically 2 steps shown in one, but the next 2 steps I want to do are I want to change this entry to a 0 and then this entry to a 0. So I've decided how to do that. I'm sorry, this should be a positive 1 right here. So let me change that. It's not going to let me change it right now. Please on your sheet, or maybe I can write it in. This should be a positive 1. This is what happens when you realize you've got a mistake on your note sheet on the fly. Okay, so we want to multiply this row by positive 2 in order to cancel out a negative 2, and then by a negative 3 in order to cancel out a positive 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go back into my second matrix, math. These are times row plus. Now I can only do one of these at a time. So first I'm going to do this one. So I want to multiply by 2. I'm doing this in matrix A, so second matrix A, comma. I'm using row 1 in order to change row 2. The easy way to remember it is whatever's out here, it goes in order. I'm using row 1 to change row 2. So I type it in row 1 first to change row 2. Close it up, store, back in matrix A. Okay, that has changed my middle row. Now I'm going to change my bottom row. Back into the second matrix, choose math. I need another times row plus. This time I'm multiplying by -3 in matrix A. I'm using row 1 again to change row 3 this time, and store. Okay, so that creates my bottom row for me right here. Okay, let's just keep chugging along. The next thing I would want to do is create a leading one right here. And this is a nice one that I could just multiply by a fifth. Now, a fifth is the same thing as 0.2, so when I have nice fractions like that, I'm going to just choose to type them in as their decimal form. So I'm going back into second matrix, math. This time it's just a simple times row. I want to multiply by a fifth, which is 0.2, in matrix A, and the row that I am changing this time is row 2. And I'm going to store back into matrix A again. Okay, so that has changed this row, creating my leading one. Now I want to get zeros here and here. So the magic multiplications I need to do is I need to multiply this 1 by a -2 to cancel out a +2, and I need to multiply it by a +4 to cancel out a -4. Okay, so let's go ahead and back over to our calculator to do that. Second matrix, oops, hit the wrong button. Second matrix, math. These are both times row plus options. Okay, I'm multiplying first by a -2. Matrix A, you can see how this gets tedious, but it's still a lot better than doing it all by hand. I'm using row 1 to change, whoops, nope, go back. Using row 2 to change row 1 this time. And I want to store it back into matrix A. So store, second matrix A. Okay, so let's double check that. So that created the 0 here, and these ended up both turning into -1s. Okay, so we're good so far. Now let's change this entry to a 0 with this row operation. Second matrix math, choose times row plus. I want to multiply by 4 in matrix A. I'm using row 2 to change row 3. Store. Okay, so that changed to my bottom row. Now I've got unit column, unit column. Now I need to fix this to a leading one, and then after that, get rid of the other values above it. So to change this to a leading one, I could just multiply that row by a half. So I want to do another times row. I want to multiply by a half. Matrix A, and the row that I am multiplying by a half this time is row 3. And store. Okay, so I got my 1 right here. So this is good. Well, I already know at this point, I already know that Z is 2. Okay, let's get rid of these -1 and 1 respectively by using a +1 and a -1 respectively. So second matrix, some more times row plus. For the top, I want to multiply by 1. Matrix A. I'm using row 3 to change row 1. So 3, 1. Close it up, store it. Okay, so that got rid of this -1. Turn that into a 0. Okay, last operation. We want to multiply by a -1 in matrix A. We are using row 3 to change row 2. And one final store. Okay, at that point, I've got it in completely reduced form. If 1's on my diagonals, 0 everywhere else. I can read out the answer now. X is 1, Y is 0, and Z is 2.